Good morning. Thank you for joining today's webinar where we go live every day, twice, once here at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and then a second time later at 1 p.m. Pacific time. As always, you can follow the conversation on our community site, which is mysolo401k.net/my-community. I'm going to send over a link to that page. Today's live webinar and Q&A session is for educational purposes. We're not providing investment advice or tax advice. And we're not selling investments. So today we're going to talk about how to calculate Roth solo 401k contributions, both employee and employer Roth contributions to a Roth solo 401k for a business that's taxed as a S-corporation. So it can be an LLC taxed as an S-corporation where W-2 wages is what determines the amount of income that you're going to use to make both employee Roth and employer Roth solo 401k contributions for tax year 2025. We're going to go over some of those rules as well as our online contribution calculator. We're going to go over some live examples. All right, let me share my screen here. Give me a moment. Okay, so we'll go over some rules and then we'll go over some live examples using our solo 401k contribution calculator for maximizing both employee Roth and employer Roth solo 401k contributions for an S-corp. Okay, let's talk first about Roth solo 401k employer contributions. So resulting from Secure Act 2.0, you can now choose to make your employer profit sharing contributions as Roth instead of pre-tax. What's going to happen is that you're still going to need to pay yourself W-2 wages from the S-corporation in order to make employer Roth contributions. Same is true for employee Roth solo 401k contributions. The employer Roth contribution limit for tax year 2025 is going to be 25% of your W-2 wages. For example, if you pay yourself $100,000 of W-2 wages for tax year 2025, because your self-employed business is an S-corporation or an LLC tax as an S-corporation, you're going to be able to contribute 25% of $100,000 as an employer Roth solo 401k contribution. So that means 25% of $100,000 in this example is going to be $25,000. So that'll be your maximum employer Roth solo 401k contribution for 2025, $25,000. You're then going to report that $25,000 Roth employer contribution on the business tax return For an S corporation, that's going to be Form 1120S, the U.S. income tax return for an S corporation. Specifically, you're going to report it. So you would put $25,000 on line 17 of the Form 1120S. That line number is titled pension, profit sharing, etc. So even though it's going to be a Roth employer contribution, you still report that on your business side on the 1120S. So the business gets a deduction for that contribution. Now, what's going to happen after that is you're also going to need to report that $25,000 of employer Roth solo 401k contributions on your Form 1099-R. So it's going to be taxable on the participant's personal tax return, which is Form 1040. So yeah, it's kind of quirky because the corporation gets a deduction on the 1120S for that employer Roth solo 401k contribution, but the participant, aka the taxpayer, is going to have to pay taxes on that $25,000 because it's going to have to be treated as an in-plan Roth conversion. So on the Form 1040 U.S. individual income tax return, you're going to list in box 5A the $25,000 using the example of $100,000. So 25% of 100,000 is 25,000. So you'll list 25,000 in 5A, and then 5B you list the same amount, 25,000, because it's taxable. So in review, employer Roth solo 401k contributions are tax deductible on the business side. So a Form 1120S of the S corporation tax return, but they're taxable on your personal tax return, so the participant's personal tax return, Form 1040. And it's taxed on, you list that taxable amount in 5A and 5B. Now, you're not required to make employer Roth solo 401k contributions, just like you're not required to make employer pre-tax contributions. That's a question we quite often receive. If you want to learn more about employer Roth contributions, take a look at IRS Notice 2024-2. Okay, let's now talk about employee Roth solo 401k contributions. So employee Roth solo 401k contributions are not percentage based like employer Roth solo 401k contributions are. For example, for tax year 2025, the maximum employee Roth solo 401k contribution for those under age 50 is $23,500. If you're age 50 or older, you can do an additional catch-up contribution of $7,500 on top of that $23,500. Now there's a new super catch-up for those who are a certain age in 2025. So if you are age 61, or age 60, 61, 62, or 63 in 2025, instead of making the $7,500 normal catch-up contribution, instead you can do the super catch-up contribution of $11,250. And that's on top of the $23,500 contribution. No, you can't also do the $7,500. It's either the $11,250 or the $7,500 for those who are age 60, 61, 62, or 63. And those who are age 50 or older qualify automatically for the $7,500 catch-up contribution. The reason we lumped the catch-up contributions under the employee contribution category is because it's technically an employee contribution as well. So the catch-up contributions, Roth Solo 401k catch-up contributions, can never be made as an employer Roth contribution. They're always treated as employee Roth Solo 401k contributions. Now, employee Roth Solo 401k contributions, those are going to be reported in box 12A of your Form W-2 using code AA, and then you're going to check off box 13, retirement plan. So even though you don't get a deduction for it, because employee contributions, Roth employee contributions, that is, are never tax deductible. So that covers the differences between employee Roth Solo 401k contributions and employer Roth Solo 401k contributions. So this is a good page to take a look at. We're going to post today's video on this page here on our website so you can reference it later as well. Okay, let's switch over to our calculator so we can do some live illustrations here. I'm going to search our website for our handy Solo 401k contribution calculator. Okay, here's our Solo 401k annual contribution calculator. We're going to concentrate on tax year 2025. Again, today's presentation is for an S-corporation or an LLC taxes an S-corporation, where we're going to do live calculations. Okay, let's say that this individual's age 45. Let's further say their income is $100,000 of W-2 wages for 2025. We're going to keep it as a corporation. Plan year, we're going to do tax year 2025. Click on calculate. See if I can blow this up a little bit. So, what? I plugged in 10,000. I need to plug in 100,000. Let me plug this in again here. So, age 40. Income is 100,000. Corporation, calculate. Okay, based on $100,000, you're going to be able to do an employer Roth Solo 401k contribution of $25,000. Okay, this $25,000 figure. That's derived by simply multiplying 100,000 times 25%. That's how we get to $25,000. So you would apply that $25,000 as an employer Roth Solo 401k contribution. You would then deposit that directly into the Roth Solo 401k holding account, aka bank account or brokerage account. Once you deposit that into that Roth Solo 401k brokerage account, you would complete that. That will complete the step of maximizing that employer Roth Solo 401k contribution. And then you're going to have to report that contribution on your Form 1120S, as I mentioned earlier, because it's going to be tax deductible on the business side. But then you're going to have to treat it as an in-plan conversion. You don't have to actually move the funds because they will have already been deposited into the Roth bucket, but you're going to have to report that on your Form 1040 next year when you file the 2025 tax return, and report that as a taxable in-plan conversion. And then we're going to issue a Form 1099-R after you complete our online conversion form so that we collect the necessary information to issue that Form 1099-R. So it's going to be reportable to the IRS as a taxable in-plan conversion. That's for employer Roth solo 401k contributions. Now you can also make an employee Roth solo 401k contribution. That's going to be $23,500. So when you add these two amounts together, the $25,000 employer Roth contribution plus the $23,500 employee Roth solo 401k contribution, that comes up to what? $48,500. So you're going to be able to contribute a total of $48,500 as a Roth, $48,500 in Roth contributions, consisting of the $25,000 employer Roth contribution and the $23,500 employee Roth solo 401k contribution. There's no catch-up available because this individual is under age 50. So let's do an example now of someone who is age 50 or older. So in this case, we'll put an age of 50 on our calculator. Let's see, here we go, age 50. We'll use the same income of $100,000. Tax year 2025. So $100,000. The employer Roth solo 401k contribution stay the same because that's percentage based. That's 25% of $100,000, which is $25,000. The employee Roth solo 401k contribution is $23,500. And then you can also do the $7,500 as an employee Roth solo 401k contribution. So you add those three amounts together, and we get what? So we would do what? 48,500 plus the 7,500, that gives us $56,000. So so if someone who's age 50 or older, based on 100,000 of W-2 wages, they can contribute $56,000 in Roth contributions, consisting of the $25,000 employer Roth contribution, the $23,500 employee Roth contribution, and the $7,500 catch-up contribution. Let's do another example, but let's say this person is age 60. This will be an illustration of the super catch-up contribution, which is new for tax year 2025. So we talked about the super catch-up contribution earlier, which is available for those who are ages 60, 61, 62, or 63 in 2025. So we'll say this individual is age 60. Income, we'll use $100,000 again. Corporation, tax year 2025, calculate. Okay, here, the employer Roth solo 401k contribution stayed the same because it's a percentage base. It's 25% of $100,000, which is $25,000. The employee contribution stay the same, $23,500. And again, we're talking about Roth employee contributions. The catch-up contribution, which is the super catch-up for those age 50 or older, is $11,250, and that can be applied as a Roth solo 401k employee contribution. So if we add those amounts together, we end up with what? 25,000 plus 23,500 plus 11,250 in catch-up. That's a total of $59,750 in Roth solo 401k contributions for tax year 2025, consisting of 25,000 employer Roth solo 401k funds, 23,500 in employee Roth solo 401k contributions, and $11,250 in solo 401k employee Roth solo 401k catch-up contributions. Okay, let's do another example here. Let's do an example of, I don't know, let's go with $200,000, I guess. So 200,000, and we'll do a calculation for someone who's age under 50. Let's say they're 35. It's not going to matter because anyone who's under 50 does not qualify for a catch-up. Income, will use $200,000 of W-2 wages from your S corporation, LLC taxes and S corporation, self-employed business, for example. Tax year 2025, calculate. Okay, so here, based on $200,000, you can do an employer Roth solo 401k profit sharing contribution of $50,000. So you see that went up $25,000 from that $100,000 W-2 wages we used earlier. So again, it's 25% of $200,000. That's how we got to the $50,000 of Roth solo 401k employer contributions. You're going to see that the employee contribution amount did not go up. That stayed the same because that's a flat of $23,500. So here you're going to notice that if we add 50,000 plus 23,500, that's going to give us $73,500. Well, you can't contribute more than the allowed contribution amount for tax year 2025, which is $70,000. So even though this figure totals to $73,500, you can only contribute a total of $70,000 in total contributions, both employee Roth solo 401k and employer Roth solo 401k combined. So you would treat that $50,000 as an employer Roth contribution, and then you would instead treat $20,000 as an employee Roth solo 401k contribution. Or you can say, well, I'm going to go ahead and do $23,500 as an employee Roth solo 401k contribution and contribute instead whatever amount that would equal up to $70,000. So you could do subtract out by 3, I guess. So $47,000 of employer, or $46,500 of employer Roth contributions. Bottom line is you can't go over the overall limit, which is $70,000 for all solo 401k contribution types for tax year 2025. And this is for someone who's under age 50. If you're age 50 or older, you qualify for the $7,500 catch-up contribution. So let's do an example there. So this person's age 50, income is $200,000 of W-2 wages from their self-employed business. Plan year 2025. Calculate. Okay, here we're going to see that it went up by $7,500. That's because of the catch-up contribution. So this individual can contribute a total of $77,500 of contributions when you combine the $50,000 of employer Roth solo 401k contributions, let's see, so that's $50,000 of employer Roth solo 401k contributions plus, let's see what we get here, because again, we can't go over the $77,500 limit. So you can chop this up in different ways, but let's chop it up. Let's say $50,000 of employer Roth solo 401k contributions. And then let's say you contribute $23,000 or $23,500 of employee Roth solo 401k contributions. So now we're at $73,500. So again, we can't go over the $77,500 overall limit. So you can do a catch-up amount of the difference of $77,500 minus $73,500, which would be $4,000. Therefore, you can contribute a total of $77,500 for tax year 2025, and employer Roth, and super catch, and Roth solo 401k catch-up contributions. Let's look at that math again. So 50,000 plus 23,500 equals 73,500. We add another 4,000 of catch-up. That gives us 77,500, because you cannot contribute more than the overall limit. So total contribution, 77,500. And again, you can chop up these figures how you want. You just can't go over that total amount of 77,500. Okay, let's do one last calculation here of the super catch-up. So this person, let's say, is age 63, because you can do a super catch-up if you're age 60, 61, 62, or 63. Income is going to be $200,000 of self-employed W-2 wages from the S-corp for tax year 2025. Here, the total that can be contributed is going to be $81,250. So you cannot contribute more than that in total contributions. So one option is you could do a $50,000 employer Roth solo 401k contribution, which is 25% of $200,000. Then you can do a $23,500 employee Roth contribution. And then you can do a catch-up contribution up to that $11,250. So let's add $11,250 plus 23,500. So if we add $11,250 of employee Roth solo 401k catch-up contributions, that's going to equal $84,750, which is too much. Because again, you can't contribute more than $81,250 in total. So catch-up contributions is going to have to be what? See how we get to that. Let's see, 81,250 minus 50,000 equals 76. Oops, one moment here. Let me do the math here. So 81,250 is the overall limit. Subtract 50,000 of employer Roth solo 401k contributions equals $31,250. Subtract 23,500 of employee Roth solo 401k contributions. So you're going to be able to do a catch-up contribution of a Roth employee solo 401k contribution catch-up of $7,750. So if we add 50,000 of employer Roth solo 401k contributions plus 23,500 of employee Roth solo 401k contributions plus $7,750 of catch-up contributions, you can contribute a total of $81,250 in Roth contributions. So that's a good illustration there of maximizing Roth contributions, both employee and employer. Of course, there are a lot of different scenarios here. For instance, let's say you've already maximized your employee Roth contributions to your daytime job. You wouldn't be able to make any employee Roth solo 401k contributions to your solo 401k, because those are aggregated with your daytime job employee Roth 401k contributions. So then you could still do the employer Roth 401k contribution of $50,000, and then you could do the full super catch-up contribution of $11,250 for a total of $61,250 in contributions and Roth contributions. So in short, there's different ways to do calculations based on whether you're contributing to your daytime job 401k or if you have a 403b that you contribute to. Okay, let's take a look at some live questions here. Looks like we may not have any live questions this morning. But again, we'll be back again here today at 1 p.m. Pacific time. If you have any questions then, we'll be happy to go answer those questions. We'll be covering another topic here this afternoon at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Well, I think I see one question here that just trickled in. Okay. Oh, no problem. We like to educate the public out there on solo 401k plans. The question is, I need clarification on your video about how much self-employment income is needed to max out Mega Backdoor Roth solo 401k. Say one takes a reasonable compensation of $69,000 in gross pay from their S-corp for tax year 2024. There are no pre-tax contributions from employee and no contributions pre-tax Roth from employers. One able to contribute all of the gross pay of $69,000 to the solo 401k? Yes. The short answer is yes. And let's do a calculation on that. And the reason being, and we actually did a presentation on this last week. Let me see if I can look it up here. So voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions as part of the Mega Backdoor Roth solo 401k, those are dollar for dollar. So it takes less income to maximize those voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions, which can then be converted to the Roth solo 401k or to the Roth IRA. Let me pull that up here if I can locate it here. Here it is. So we did this live presentation last week. Let me send over that link for maximizing voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions. So let's go to our calculator and do a calculation as well. I just shared the link with you as well. Well, let's go to our handy calculator. So, okay, so you're age 45, 69,000 of W-2 wages. This is going to be for tax year 2024 because you still have until your business tax return due date plus time you file extension here in 2025 to make 2024 voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions. You also still have time to open a solo 401k in 2025, so it's effective for tax year 2025, so that you can make voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions. So if someone has not opened the solo 401k yet for 2024, and they had enough W-2 wages for tax year 2024 from their S-corporation, they can open a solo 401k now by March 15, and then you can do the voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution by March 15, or you can file for an extension and do it by September 15 of 2025. So you could do the voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution for 2024 and 2025 up to $69,000 and then convert it to the Roth solo 401k. or Roth IRA, and that voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution will count for 2024. Okay, let's do an illustration here. So here we're going to do an illustration for tax year 2024. So here with the calculator, you have to do a few manual things here. Let's see here. Let's blow this up a little bit. So based on $69,000 of W-2 wages from your self-employed S corporation for tax year 2024, it's pretty easy because you don't have to subtract any self-employment income tax from an S corporation W-2. That's one of the differences about an S corporation contribution calculation versus a calculation for a sole proprietorship or a partnership, where you have to subtract 1/2 of self-employment income tax from that $69,000 figure. But since we're talking about an S corporation here, that 1/2 of self-employment income tax does not apply when performing the calculation. So based on $69,000 of W-2 wages, you're going to be able to contribute that entire $69,000 as a voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution for tax year 2024, and then you'll be able to convert it over to the Roth solo 401k plan. So the calculator doesn't do a very good job here because it's talking about profit sharing, employee. It doesn't take into account voluntary after-tax. So it takes a little bit of knowledge. So $69,000, you could contribute the entire $69,000 as a voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution for tax year 2024, and then convert it over to the Roth solo 401k plan. Let's do the same calculation for a sole proprietorship, a mega backdoor, since we're on the topic. So let's say that instead of being taxed as an S corporation, you're a sole proprietorship, which means you file a Schedule C. Let's say you're age 40 or 35. Let's say your Schedule C line 31 figure is the same amount, $69,000. And we also did a video on this too last week. I'll share that in a moment, for a sole proprietorship or an LLC taxed as a sole proprietorship. So we're going to change it to a sole proprietorship, tax year 2024. Here, so $69,000 is what we entered as line 31 of that Schedule C. You have to subtract 1/2 of self-employment income tax from the $69,000 figure. So after you subtract that $4,874, that leaves you with $64,125 and some change. That's the amount that you can make in voluntary after-tax solo 401k contributions for tax year 2024. And if you're a sole proprietorship, you still have time to open a solo 401k plan for tax year 2024 here in 2025 and make this voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution as part of the mega backdoor, and then convert it to the Roth solo 401k. If you're a sole proprietor, you're going to have until April 15 of this year to open the solo 401k for tax year 2024 and make that mega backdoor Roth solo 401k voluntary contribution. Or if you file for a timely extension, so Form 1040, you're going to have until October 15 of 2025 to both open the solo 401k for 2024 and make the voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution for tax year 2024. So you got plenty of time to really supercharge your retirement account savings there on a Roth basis. Okay, so again, we went over this type of calculation for a sole proprietorship regarding the voluntary after-tax solo 401k contribution. We did that last week. Let me share that link for the voluntary after-tax mega backdoor contribution calculation walkthrough that we did. Let's see here. We'll go to blog. We'll jump down to let's see here. Here it is. Live calculation. Mega backdoor for sole proprietorship. Let me share this link with you. So we did a live presentation last week on this too. So let me share that with you. Okay, let's see here. Here's the link to that one. Okay. So, oh, did I share that with you? I think I did. Here's the link. Okay, there's the link there to last week's maximizing the mega backdoor Roth solo 401k for a sole proprietorship. Okay, I think that takes care of today's questions. So thank you for joining. We'll be back again here in a couple hours. Until then, have a good morning.